Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Pennsylvania Association for College Admission Counseling Virtual College Exploration Program for all Pennsylvania students. My name is David Weissport. I'm the Director of College Counseling at Winchester Thurston School in Pittsburgh. And this evening, we are happy to have colleagues from Franklin and Marshall College joining us. So for the session, your camera and microphones are off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you, but you may interact with them by using the Q&A feature at any time. There will be a recording of this and all our sessions on the PACAC website, and this will be going for a couple more weeks, so definitely sign up for more presentations. With that, I'll turn over to my colleagues from Franklin and Marshall. All yours.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this evening's information session. We are very excited to share more about Franklin and Marshall College with you and look forward to working with the students throughout the college search and application process. So just to begin, I want to introduce myself and our fellow presenters. My name is Emily Herbert, and I am one of the Senior Assistant Directors of Admission and Coordinator of Transfer Admission at Franklin and Marshall College.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carla Kiefer. I am one of the Assistant Directors of Admission here at FNM and also a graduate of FNM.
And hello, my name is Roger. I am a junior at Franklin Marshall College. I am an international studies and sociology joint major with a French minor and a few other things I do besides being a tour guide at Franklin Marshall College. I am part of Define American, which is an advocacy for immigration rights, part of Mi Gente Latina, which is a cultural club for Latinx students, also part of SAGA, which stands for Sexuality and Gender Alliance, and also a member of the Diversity Committee.
Hi, everybody. My name's Sophie. I'm also a junior. I'm a government major here, and I'm from Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. I do a lot of music stuff on campus, so I'm involved in a cappella. I take voice lessons, and I'm also part of a student band. And outside of music, I am the president of my honors fraternity.
Okay, so a little bit more about what our student body looks like. We have roughly around 2,400 students coming from 48 states and 44 countries. Of our entire student population, 17% of our students are international. When we look at our domestic students, 23% of our students are students of color, 20% are Pell eligible, and 20% are first generation. So as you can probably already tell by these numbers, our campus is very diverse. And we really believe what brings everyone to FNM is this passion for learning and our vibrant community. And what about our community, right? So Lancaster City, we're in a really unique situation where Lancaster City itself is also diverse. A fun fact that we like to share is that Lancaster City actually welcomes the highest number of refugees per capita in the country. And it's interesting because it really does mirror this diversity that we have on campus and in the city. And the other thing you should know is what's unique about our location is that for being a small liberal arts institution, we're fortunate enough that we're not in the middle of nowhere. We're in, our train station is about 10 minutes away from campus. Philadelphia is about an hour and 15 minutes. Baltimore is about an hour and a half, DC about 2, and New York about 3 hours away. And that's all within a train ride away. And so why is this important? The reason why this is so important is because it really does provide an opportunity for students to enhance their education here at FNM. And my colleague Emily is going to talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. Going on to our next slide, thank you. So we are going to share the 3 distinctive features that make FNM so unique. We're going to start off with sharing a little bit more about how FNM sets new standards of academic excellence through the ability that our students have to personalize their education. The second thing will be how FNM helps to foster the blended experience of living and learning through our dynamic college house community. And then last but not least, how F&M leverages the city of Lancaster to enhance the students' experience here. So next slide. Okay, so how does F&M set new standards of academic excellence? And I think we need to start by explaining a little bit more about liberal arts. What does that really mean? So being liberal arts means that our approach fosters lifelong learning. It is about knowing how to communicate, think critically, work independently, and collaboratively. Liberal arts education really helps you develop in the way of being and way of thinking. And so we have an interdisciplinary approach to learning. And what that means is that students will bring in different perspectives and therefore gain a deeper understanding of that matter. So what does our academic opportunities look like? We have 62 different fields of studies that our students can pick from. Some of our top disciplines include business, biology, econ, government, and psych. And something you should know is that our students are not declaring their major until their second year, second semester. And so whatever discipline they're looking to pursue, at that point when they declare it, they will get an advisor for each discipline that they are pursuing. Until then, our students are getting an advisor through their connection course. And so this connection course is going to play a really critical role in the student's experience. And it's going to help our students transition from high school learning to developing the skill sets that they will need here at F&M. And Emily is going to share a little bit more about that. But last and not least, our research opportunities is going to be one of the things that really makes F&M unique. About 2/3 of our students are working one-on-one with a professor, and about 40% of them are getting co-authored. So if you're looking to pursue further higher education or looking at a very competitive job, being in a situation where you've been co-authored can be something that can help you stand apart from your peer. And so the way that our students are able to develop this relationship with our professors is by that small class size that we have. And so our students are doing research regardless of whether or not they are pursuing something in the science field. But for an example, I'm going to share my experience. When I was at F&M, I did research on genetic disorders within the Amish and Mennonite community. My research extended way beyond just the lab work. And so what that really means is that I got to interact with the patients themselves. And so what that really made me feel like was that, okay, what I was doing was really playing a critical role. It wasn't just textbook stuff that I was reading. It was more hands-on of a type of experience that I got here at F&M. The really neat thing about my personal research experience was that it also developed in different ways throughout my 4 years. So I started off as a volunteer. It then developed into receiving a Hackman scholarship. So I got paid during the summer to do research, and then it developed into an independent study. So it was what I did in order to fulfill my neuroscience major. And that is going to be an example of a research opportunity. I am going to pass it on to Emily, my colleague. Emily, you're muted.
Okay, thank you, Carla. So again, it's great to be with you this evening. And I wanted to share 2 additional research projects that we're very proud of that are very relevant and important to society. So one of the projects is a collaboration between our physics department and geosciences department, where students at F&M are working with professors and then scientists from 3 other countries. They have developed robots that are being sent into minefields in inactive war zones to identify mines, and they have received funding from NATO, and they are in their 4th year of the research. Another project that we're very proud of is through the government department, and a professor that has worked with students over the course of several years has developed what we call our Global Barometer of Gay Rights. Through this project, students and the professor have taken different quantitative and qualitative data sets and are able to study the different levels of protection and persecution that individuals are facing in over 200 different countries. They've divided it into 5 different domains, and essentially with all of this data, they've been able to assign the countries a letter grade of A through F. And this is then user-friendly data that other colleges, activists, and researchers, politicians can use. So just a few examples of some of the research projects our students are doing, but please know that this is an accessible and normal part of the college experience for F&M. So continuing for our experience, the third distinguishing feature this evening will be our college house community. And this is essentially the structure behind residential life. A number of years ago, F&M decided that we wanted to take advantage of the fact that our students were living here together for 4 years. And instead of just having a number of dorms, we wanted to find a way to blur those lines between the living and the learning so that our students were coming together all the time, everywhere, and able to engage in a unique fashion. So it sounds a little bit like Harry Potter, but we have 5 college houses at F&M. Every student becomes a member of one of those houses for their full 4 years. You are placed into your college house based off of the connections course, which Carla shared with us. So that is how you're physically living with the students that you are then learning with. There are many components that go into the college house experience, but what we really appreciate is that it is the first community that students come in with. You do a lot of orientation with your house. It becomes one of your identities, but then as you transition throughout the years, it becomes one of many communities and identities that you will have. And by the end of your 4 years, you graduate by your house. So some of the components that make up the college house experience, all 5 houses have what I think of as a home base. They're the main buildings on a residential quad. They're defined by 3 main shared spaces, including the seminar room, which is where your connections course is typically taught by your first advisor, then the great room and the fireplace room. And these are study spaces, hangout social spaces, very cozy tables and chairs. So it serves as a nice gathering space for students of all 4 years. Every house has its own student government, a Don and a Dean. The Don is a faculty member who serves as another academic advocate for students. The Dean does more of the student affairs, ensuring students are happy and healthy, and working with our house advisors, which is F&M's equivalent of RA. Social events, kind of some smaller scale ongoing events like bagel breakfasts, where the Don and the Dean will bring in bagels from a local shop and you can pop by on your way to class and say hello. One house does karaoke. It's Ware College House, so they call it Wareoke. I believe we're currently in the middle of F&M Idol through Ware College House. Brooks College House does Sundays. Sometimes they're larger scale events like an Oscar or Super Bowl screening party, a fall festival. So that's just a small sampling of the events, but through the houses combined, they will put on hundreds of events throughout the year. The academic component, a house may host a speaker. It may be a professor to share more about their research. It could be hosting a speaker and having the reception in the college house. So again, it's a very dynamic structure behind residential life, but knowing that this will impact the experience you have on a day-to-day basis. There are friendly rivalries between the houses as well. They all think they're the best house, but we have the house games throughout the years, and during the year, they will collect the scores. And at the end, whichever college house wins will have their name put on a trophy that is then in our college center where students hang out. So to talk about Lancaster then just for another moment, this is one of the most impactful experiences outside of the classroom and campus. So Lancaster City has over 60,000 people. There is so much more to Lancaster than some may assume. You have learned about the Amish community, but right where our campus is this thriving city. It continues to be recognized on a national level. This past year, Forbes rated it as one of the top 14 cities to visit. The year before, it was rated one of the top 10 coolest cities to visit. The New York Post a few years ago compared it as the new Brooklyn. And it continues to gain recognition in other ways. Central Market, which is one of the most well-known establishments in the city. It's our country's oldest and continuously operating indoor farmers market, but was just written up in the New York Times as a physical representation of who the city is and how we can blend these different worlds between the immigrant population, the Amish, and our local businesses. The city itself has over 100 different independently owned and operated restaurants. So it's a very unique place, kind of the hip, artsy scene, if you will. We do celebrate the first Friday of every month where galleries are open late. Restaurants do special events, live music on the streets, food trucks. Then beyond just kind of the fun side of being in such a unique location, and I should say the center of the city is about a 15-minute walk from campus. So again, very accessible. But there are also service opportunities, opportunities to engage in internships and jobs. And the president of our college meets with the mayor of the city regularly, so we have very strong connections. And finally, I do want to emphasize the opportunity to bring the city and the real world into the classroom. So just a few brief examples. We have a series of courses called community-based learning classes. One of these classes is called Drug Courts. It is co-taught by a judge and students are going into the courtroom. There is a class called Human Rights, Human Wrongs, where students will work on individual asylum cases. There is a class that studies lead poisoning, with this being such a historic old city, and then lead poisoning with asthma. And students are going into local schools and educating families about these risks. So just know that location does matter, and F&M is located in an amazing city that will impact your experience. And some scenes from our students downtown. And just to give you a visual of campus, and you will see off to the left is where the city is and where that image that I shared before is. So then to wrap up by talking about our application process, F&M is a school that accepts the common application or the coalition application. Before we dive into those specifics, Carla and I do want to emphasize that F&M offers a very holistic approach to reviewing an application. We've talked about what a dynamic and diverse community we have, and the only way that we can ensure that community is to look for that type of a person and student during those high school years. So we're looking at all components of the application. We're looking for strong scholars, students that have been involved in their communities, that are leveraging those passions, and who want to come to college and have that experience and really engage with their peers and their professors. So in terms of the specifics within the application, I know I think of my applicants as puzzles, and you're sent electronically, and those puzzle pieces become a big mess, and it's my job to put those pieces back together. So it's a puzzle with different sized pieces. To start with the academics, we are looking for students that are strong scholars in a rigorous curriculum. So we want the students who are going above and beyond those graduation requirements. We do not recalculate a GPA, so it means we will take time to review the school report and the school profile to understand the unique curriculum and what the individual student's GPA does mean. Then the other academic component will be the tests. We accept the SAT or the ACT. The average SAT for this past year was a 1370, and the average ACT was a 30. But if these scores are not sounding like your own, that is okay. F&M is a test optional college, and we have been test optional for many years. It is something that we hope students can take away, knowing that we don't expect students to be defined by a test score, and we want our students to be able to best advocate for themselves. So simply a student would check a box on the application that says, please do not consider test scores. Other components of the application, your college essay, we're looking for students that have a strong voice, strong writing skills. So recognizing it's a very important part of the application, also recognize that each and every student has a very important story to tell. So give yourself that value and know that we're just looking to get to know you better. Your activities, there's no right or wrong activity. We're looking for students that have been well involved and have spent their time in a meaningful way. Interviews, we do offer optional interviews that are strongly recommended. For F&M, we have interviews throughout the week, Monday through Friday, and they are available up until the application deadline. We do also right now have some evening opportunities and weekend interview opportunities. All of this information and registration for interviews and other virtual visit opportunities can be found on our admissions website. And for letters of recommendation, we require one from a college counselor and one academic letter of recommendation. Briefly, you'll see the deadlines listed below. We do offer early decision 1 and 2. This is the binding way to apply. The deadlines are November 15th and January 15th, and students will hear back from F&M within 30 days. Early music notification serves as almost an early action way to apply where it is not binding. Students apply by December 1st. The application process does require an audition with F&M, and students will be notified of their decision by January 1st. And finally, we offer regular decision admission. That deadline is January 15th, and students will hear back from F&M by mid-March.
Thank you, Emily. So financial aid, what does that look like? We are just a need-based institution, so we do not provide any merit scholarship. That being said, we will meet 100% of institutionally determined financial need, and we will do that for all 4 years. So something to keep in mind. For students who are looking to apply for financial aid, we do ask that students fill out the FAFSA and CSS profile. We do have a net price calculator on our website, which is a really great tool for students to use. The thing to keep note about that is that depending on any numbers being missed, it could affect what that number at the end looks like. So just keep that in mind. About 62% of our students are receiving some form of need-based aid. And we've awarded about $65 million worth of need-based aid each year. So that being said, I believe, oh, and the last thing I do want to mention is about our early financial aid estimate. It's actually a really great resource for students. If you are considering or are interested in F&M and you're interested in applying early decision, we have an early financial aid estimate, which means you would submit an application and both of your financial aid documents, the FAFSA, CSS profile, and any other additional documents that we would need. At that point, the Office of Financial Aid generates a letter that says, if you were admitted to F&M, this is what your financial aid packet would look like. And then you have time to have a conversation with your parents, family members, and figure out whether or not that is going to be something that meets the need for you and your family. If it's something that is exactly what you were hoping and F&M still remains a top choice, you would stay in early decision and you would let us know. At that point, the agreement form would be sent to you, and that is what makes it binding. Up until then, it is not binding. If you decided that, unfortunately, the financial aid packet was not what you were hoping it would be, you have the opportunity to move your application to regular decision. You would just have to let us know. And so that is going to be the main component of our financial aid. And I believe now we are going to do a panel presentation with both Roger and Sophie. So I can start asking the first question. Roger and Sophie, can you please share a little bit more about how you came about to declare your major, minor, the discipline that you're pursuing?
Yeah, I can get started. So when I came in, I wasn't really sure of what I wanted to study, and the first thing that popped in my head during my first year was astrophysics, and that's completely different than what I have now. So I was going through different classes, and then I took my first calc class, and I was like, this is not for me, math's not really my strong suit. So then I started exploring several other departments at F&M for American Studies, history, finally discovered sociology, and I was like, this seems really interesting, let me go further into that. Discovered international studies as well, and so I kind of started diverting in both areas, but I knew I also wanted to learn another language, and I took a little bit of French in high school, so I was like, how can I continue French as well? And so with the options of not only having to just do a double major, there's a joint major option, which is kind of a little less requirements than a double major, but it still provides that same education of both disciplinaries. So I'm really thankful that F&M has that availability to explore before you finally declare. And so finally, during the last semester of my sophomore year, I was able to determine that these two things were the best options for me as my major and French being my minor.
And my story is somewhat similar to Roger's. I came into F&M thinking that I wanted to do either environmental studies or animal behavior, something with the environment. And now I'm a government major, which is neither of those things. And really what helped me in my decision was that first year connections course that Carla mentioned earlier. So I took a connections course related to government and policy and democracy. And so right off the bat, I already had an academic advisor who was in the government department and was very knowledgeable in those fields. And I grew an awesome relationship with him. And before declaring my major, my sophomore year, had taken lots of courses in the gov department, had already gotten to know the professors, really, really loved the topic. And after developing that initial relationship with my advisor, I really felt like there was no going back. I just really loved government, and I still do. And I even had time before my sophomore year, second semester, to take classes in the environmental studies department to learn if I wanted to do that or not. So the fact that we get to declare our major second semester of our sophomore year is extremely valuable to provide all of us students with that flexibility.
Roger, Sophie, thank you so much for sharing. Sophie, you talked a little bit about advising. Can you both expand a little bit more about what your relationship looks like with your advisor and what ways have they been helpful?
Yeah, like I said, I've kept the same advisor for my whole career at F&M, which is not something that every single student does. But for me, I met my advisor the first day of classes I ever took here as a first year, and really started to bond with him at that point. And since then, I've taken 4 classes with him, I believe. And it's to a point now where I go to him for academic help as well as just like personal help. When I go to his office, he helps me with writing and how to make a compelling thesis, but at the same time helps me with like being overwhelmed and like how to time manage and what is valuable, like what should I be focusing on at F&M in order to put me in the best place I can be when I graduate. He's also helped me considerably with writing recommendations for me for opportunities over the summer. Really just an exceptional relationship with advisors, I would say.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with Sophie about how amazing the advising is at F&M. For me, I had different advisors than what Sophie experienced. So I started off with my first connections professor being my advisor for my first 2 years. And then once I declared, I got 2 advisors, one from the sociology department and one for the international studies department. But with all 3 of them, they've been absolutely amazing. For me, I'm a first generation college student, so I wasn't really sure like how to approach certain situations when I did start to face any specific obstacles. And so the first individuals I started to reach out to for any help were my advisors. And they were super helpful in kind of helping me out and managing kind of with my time, academics, different opportunities, how to approach them, connecting me with other individuals on campus, for example, director of fellowships, along with OSPGA, which is our Office of Student Postgraduate Development. A lot of career services there, absolutely amazing. But they connected me with different individuals and how they're able to help me out. So it made my transition to college life easier, and it made me adjust and get rid of that imposter syndrome that a lot of first generation college students would typically have.
So I would like to build off of that. Clearly, you both have very strong relationships with your professors and your advisors, but could you talk about what that relationship looks like beyond just the classroom or professors' office hours?
Yeah, one of the biggest events that I've had during my first year is with my connections professor, also my advisor at that time. She actually invited our whole class to have dinner at her house because a lot of the professors live nearby. And so she told us we're having a small dinner. It was towards Thanksgiving, and she invited several of us, all of us in the classroom. And so many of us actually showed up, and she had this wonderful table of amazing food, home cooked food. You don't get a lot of that when you're in college in general. So it was absolutely amazing. And it was just a really fun time to kind of get to know her and her family as well outside of a classroom setting. I also had dinner with another professor the following year with another class, and it's just really fun. And we actually went bowling with them, I believe. Yeah, we actually went bowling. So they'll do a lot of things with professors to kind of still develop those relationships. It's not all kind of just seriousness. They're sides that they just want to know you, and they're also allies, not just educators. professors are also allies, standing with a lot of the students.
Similar to Roger, I also had a professor invite me over for Thanksgiving because we get about a week break for Thanksgiving. And since we do have so many international students here, it's not necessarily feasible for them to fly home and fly back in a week. So a lot of professors will host dinners or things over the holidays for all the students who can't make it home. I've cried in professors' offices. Like, they're so helpful. I literally, one time, that was my first time ever going to my one professor's office hours. So I didn't know him that well. And he just asked me how I was doing. And I was so overwhelmed at that point in my life. I started crying and we just talked it out for a long time. We didn't even talk about class or anything. Like, at that moment, that's not what was important. And professors really understand that. Like, they're so knowledgeable in what they do and in their fields, but at the same time, they're so approachable and they're just people who genuinely and sincerely have an interest in just helping students.
Thank you both for sharing that. And if you haven't figured it out, there's a lot of food involved in college. But Roger, you started speaking about OSPAGOD. So could you guys talk about what OSPAGOD is, how it's unique from career services, and how you've been able to take advantage of the resource?
Yeah, OSPAGOD, again, is our Office of Student and Postgraduate Development. We just call that. It's a funny name, but it's kind of what we used to refer to on campus. But they always tell us that they're not just helping us with career services, but also in life in general. And I truly believe that. I personally always say that they're the most important institution on campus because they're helping students since day one as soon as they show up. So it's not just kind of resume building. It's not just kind of mock interviews, but they have a full set closet for you to borrow clothes from. So if you're missing that one piece for an outfit or for an interview, you can just raid the closet and be able to find that item. They'll connect you with alumni, so any questions you have of a specific field, they'll kind of start helping you out with that. And then I know even afterwards, you can always come back and ask for any help, kind of cleaning anything up with your resume, or if you want to make a transition to a different field. I know they're still kind of going to be there for you, and so I'm really excited that I know they're going to have my back. So if I have any questions, that something pops up that I wasn't really aware of beforehand, I know I can come back to them. And so it's really great. They have several workshops happening. I'm currently in one of them called the Life of the College Success Seminar. And so they're teaching us about different skills that will benefit us for the future. And it's really fast paced and they really help us. We only had 1 hour to discuss resumes, and mine just completely cleaned up, and I'm really excited to use it in the future.
I actually also participated in the Life After College Success Seminar last year. It was so awesome. They really focused on helping us to figure out what our talents are and how to cultivate them in the best way, and how to talk about ourselves in an interview, because that can be a very scary skill sometimes. I know especially for me it is. We also had an etiquette dinner where we all went to the dining hall. We got free food and we dressed up really nice, and they took us step by step with how to do a dinner interview. I've gone there for just career counseling services and gotten undivided attention from the counselors there, just focusing on me and helping me feel confident in myself in the professional world. They are very amazing what they do in OSPAGOD, and they love helping students.
So I know with OSPAGOD, they can be really helpful with providing students with opportunities, but can you also share maybe other offices that are helping students, let's say, get connected with Lancaster City, the community, or finding those other internships?
Yeah, so we have the Ware Institute for Civic Engagement, which is basically all things volunteering in Lancaster. So if you are interested in volunteering, which I think we should all be, you can go to the Ware Institute and they can hook you up with a volunteer opportunity in Lancaster, whether it be helping the homeless or helping the hungry or helping children or helping women or whatever suits your fancy. The Ware Institute is very connected with the Lancaster community. They also do something called the Public Service Summer Institute over the summer, which is a program that has internships with different nonprofits in the city. So F&M students can get paid by the school to work for a nonprofit in Lancaster over the summer. They have a very, very wide variety of different nonprofits you can work for. They also do something called Service Saturdays, which are each weekend they'll pick a different charity or nonprofit in Lancaster and take like a busload of students out there, so you can just volunteer your heart out. They really, really stress the importance of civic engagement for students here.
Yeah, and it's not just the offices at F&M, it's also the students. Several student organizations plan several activities to go and help out and volunteer in downtown Lancaster. I know specifically Impact, which is a group that typically, I think it's every single Saturdays, they go down to help at the Water Street Missionary, and so they provide they help with serving food for homeless individuals, homeless families. So you won't only just find those activities with the Water Citizen Engagement, but also several students are very active, not only on just campus, but also in the Lancaster community. So volunteer services, interacting with different elementary schools, several opportunities to get involved with, not just academically, but also kind of in that aspect with other friends in the organization.
Roger, you bring me to my next question. Can you both share a little bit more about the types of organizations that you're involved on campus, but also how did you come to know and learn about them?
Yeah, so for me, that transition to college is definitely one thing. And then when it comes with the social aspect, it's another scary layer that many students may have when coming into college. So for me, I definitely wanted to find a group that I would be able to kind of relate with when it comes to my Latin American identity. So being Mexican, I definitely wanted to still use my Spanish. I didn't want to lose it. I still wanted to be able to communicate with my parents. And so Mi Gente Latina was one of the first clubs I joined. And so it was really nice to kind of be able to interact with other individuals who kind of got the same jokes as I did, who would always kind of share different stories, kind of relating to our childhood experiences. It was just a lot of fun. A lot of Latin American food. That's always fun when they have something in their club organization, their club meetings. And then from there on, I started kind of trying out different clubs. And what's really nice is that you don't have an obligation to always stick with them. If there's one that you feel like you can't always provide your time for them, you can just jump to the next one. So it's really nice that I was able to explore different clubs. Diversity committee is another thing I'm really passionate about, working on social justice and making sure there's equity, inclusion, diversity throughout campus. And so that's something that I'm really excited to work with. And there's just several other clubs that you can think of, multicultural organizations, different organizations that focus specifically on community service, and yeah, different ideas that they have, and it's really nice.
So like I said, I'm very involved in music on campus, and I've always loved music, but coming into college, I didn't necessarily know how to get involved there or what to do. I was never going to be a music major, and I'm not a music major, which has nothing to do with being involved in music. So I was like, okay, how do I do this? And as a freshman, I went to our club fair, and I was just like, I kind of picked and choose a bunch of things, and I signed up for probably like 10 clubs, like way too many clubs. I definitely didn't have time for it. And then what stuck was music. And so, like I said earlier, I'm involved in a cappella, and that is really probably one of the most core parts of my experience at F&M is my a cappella group, because it is a small group of about 12 of us. So it's small enough to have that intimacy, but big enough to have like a good circle of friends. And they really are a core part of what I do here. And then from that stemmed voice lessons, and from that stemmed this band that I'm in, which is with some people from a cappella and then other people in the music community here. So I've just really, really found a community within music at F&M. And then beyond that, I am involved in, or I am the president of my honors fraternity, and in that fraternity, we really stress community involvement. It is a lot of work being the president, but it's very rewarding, and I love being a member.
So 2 things here, Sophie. I've heard you perform at Common Hour. And so can one of you speak to Common Hour and kind of what it is? And then if the other one would like to share another tradition at F&M, whatever your favorite is. So I'll let you pick and choose who wants to answer which part of that question. But yes, I can't wait to hear your answers.
Roger, should I do Common Hour? Do you want to do a tradition?
Yeah, we can do it that way.
Okay, so Common Hour is something very unique to F&M. So on Thursdays from 11:30 to 12:30, everything at F&M shuts down. So there are no classes scheduled, there are no professors' office hours, there's no sports practices, meetings, nothing. Everything shuts down. And we all gather together to see a guest speaker. And these guest speakers are reflective of the interests of student and faculty. So at the beginning of each semester, the Common Hour Committee will take recommendations from students for different speakers for the semester. So they are people who we have a vested interest in hearing speak. So then each week we'll all gather in Mazer Gymnasium with F&M students, faculty, but also community members. They serve free pizza and fruit for us to enjoy while we listen to the speaker. And the speaker also holds a Q&A after their talk. We've had some really awesome people come in the past. We've had Jane Goodall, Sandra Cisneros, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, some really fascinating speakers. And it is pretty cool to see kind of like the void and vacuum of people who flow into the double doors of Mazer every Thursday. It's a very highly attended and very appreciated by all members of the F&M community.
Yeah, Common Hour is definitely one of my favorite traditions that exist on campus. I was able to meet some of the speakers, so sometimes I'll have that a nice Q&A or kind of get together afterwards. But another favorite tradition of mine is, it's kind of loud here. Another tradition is Flapjack Fest they have at F&M. So in the days leading up to finals week, they usually pick one night and they make this huge announcement that the dining hall will be open from about 9 p.m. to around midnight. And professors come in and they start serving pancakes and a bunch of other breakfast items. It's kind of our joke to say that it's their way of saying sorry for all the work we're giving you. So it's kind of a nice time to interact with them, seeing them outside of the classroom. If you have any last minute questions about the exam, you can always pop in there and just kind of talk to them. But the food is amazing. I don't know what they put in that hot chocolate in there, but it tastes absolutely delicious. They have a nice bowl of whipped cream, so I always just do half and half because that's the best mixture right there. And President Barbara Altman, she usually makes her ways around in there, so it's really nice to kind of see her coming out here, cheering on her, the students, encouraging them and making sure that they do the best they can on their tests. So free food, always great. Food is always a great component of having at F&M in general. So Flapjack Fest, definitely recommend.
I told you guys about the food. And if you serve the tater tots at Flapjack Fest, you will be the most popular person there. So don't tell anyone else my secret, but that has always been my favorite tradition at F&M as well. So we just have a few minutes left. So I wanna ask an important question to wrap up. Could you both share a piece of advice for the students that are joining us this evening, what you've learned along the way, and reassure our students that everything works out in the end?
Yes, so everything does work out in the end. I was not a believer in that when I was a senior in high school. I was so freaked out by college admissions and I was so indecisive with where to apply that I ended up applying to 23 schools and spread myself way too thin and just agonized over things that I shouldn't have been. And I would not recommend doing that. Do not apply to 23 schools. And the reason that I ended up doing that was because on a lot of college tours that I attended, I heard so many tour guides tell me, like, when I took a tour at X campus, I knew it was the school for me. And I got that feeling in my gut and I just knew it and it was destiny. And I never had that feeling. And so I was like, is something wrong? Like, have I not found the perfect school? I don't know. I guess I just have to apply to all of them. And I have learned that there is no such thing as the perfect school. That's not a thing that exists. Different schools will have different benefits and different drawbacks. And when you go to college, the awesome thing about college is that you have the ability to capitalize on what is best about that college and to make the best of the things that aren't great, kind of like life. So like, if you're feeling right now like, oh gosh, I don't know the perfect school, it's because there isn't one. And wherever you go will be perfectly imperfect, just like life. And you will find people that you love, and you will find professors that you love, and you will find a field that you love, and it will all be okay. And I know that F&M has provided that for me. And, you know, I've made mistakes along the way because there's no such thing as the perfect school, but it has been so rewarding. And I do not regret for 1 minute my choice to come to F&M.
I don't know if I have enough time to quickly say, But yeah, I would just say definitely look around schools. Sometimes you get that gut instinct of like this is the perfect school for you based on what you've seen. As Sophie mentions, that you kind of find the different things that you can benefit from that. So keep that in mind, and also know that wherever you end up going, you will always belong. Imposter syndrome may be a huge thing that happens with first-year college students, but other students as well. Don't let that get into your head. Everything works out in the very end. Just kind of be open and take those risks and kind of go outside of your box when you do come to college.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. After you close the Zoom, there's going to be a very quick 4-question survey that will appear. Sign up for more sessions on the PACAC website, and the recording for this and our other sessions will be available. So thanks again to the team from Franklin and Marshall College for joining us this evening, and I hope everyone has a great night.